So you want to learn how to code for Apple products. Well, in this video, we're going to show you through a very basic framework to follow as you work towards this goal. Hi, so I'm Tom, and this is Untitled TP, and we hope you're all keeping safe. So like I said, this video is going to be giving a basic framework for learning how to code and program for the Apple ecosystem. Now, this is going to be particularly focused for those absolute beginners, no coding background at all, to give you an outline of what you can learn and how you can learn it. Now, this is really speaking from my own experience because prior to this and learning how to code, I had no background in coding, computer science, nothing. So I really struggled knowing what I could do and how I could learn this development. What's the pathway? So I'm going to try and lay it all out for you today, and hopefully you'll find it useful. And even if you're new programming in the past, but want to learn how to Apple ecosystem and get involved in that, then again, hopefully this gives you a good layout of what you may need. And of course, with any YouTube video, if I could just remind you to just do something with one of the buttons down below, that would be really great. Preferably the like and subscribe. That would be really appreciated. It always does really help. But also with the comment section, let us know why you're trying to get into the Apple ecosystem. Is it an app idea you've got, just expanding your own coding knowledge? Or is it something that you want to get into freelancing or a company particularly? So let me know. That'd be really interesting. But that's all done now. Let's actually get stuck into and see what tools we need to learn how to code. Now, when it comes to tools and languages, there are a few different pathways that we could pick to develop things for Apple's frameworks. There are ones that are natively supported with Apple, which is what we're going to be looking at in this video, and I'm going to set the pathway framework for. However, there are third-party software and languages that can be used to make software for Apple devices. For example, a very popular one is Flutter, which is used by people to be able to make software for both Android and Apple. Now, obviously not discouraging that at all, just preferably myself, I've always stuck with native Apple supported development just because it's always going to work, it's always supported by Apple, and you know it will natively just work brilliantly with the hardware that you're trying to aim your software for. But that's not just to discourage you from using these other languages and software, because they do work, and obviously people are successful at using them. So if you want to do that, go down that avenue, then feel free. However, this video is definitely going to specifically focus on the native Apple development. So to learn any type of programming, you need two tools. First of all, it's the programming language. Second of all, it's the bit of software that you type that language into to make your product. So for Apple and their products, they use the language called Swift. And secondly, the software that they use is a program called Xcode. So we're going to break it up, we'll look at them individually and walk you through how you can get familiar with both. So let's start off with Xcode. So we're going to start off by looking at Xcode. Now, this is the free bit of software that you can download from the App Store. This is where you're going to be programming all of the bits of software that you want to run on Apple products. This is anything, regardless if it's watch, TV, iPad, Mac, whatever you can think of. If Apple's made it, the software for it is made in Xcode. Now, like I said, it is free. If you search it on the App Store, just give it a download, let it set up, and then you'll be ready to go, ready to start your programming. Let's give you a little quick look through it so you can see what's involved and what it looks like.
So let's get Xcode up and running on the App Store. If you search it just in the search bar at the top, I'll just do that now. And here we go. So there it is. Now it's free to download. Mine obviously just says open because I've already got it. But give that a little click. As you'll notice, it's quite a sizable download and it will take a little while to set up. So just give it some space and let it do it. I'm going to open mine now and we'll have a little look at what you to expect when you open Xcode. So here we have the open window. On the side there are projects. I've got some that I've already been working on. Yours will probably be empty the first time, but we'll click on the top one here to make a new project. It's going to give you options now. We'll click on the app one. That will be the standard one, but it has little setups for you already. Now I'm going to just type test as a name, but you'd put your app name here, and all of this is pretty standard. So press next, click somewhere to save it, and here we have the basic lay of Xcode and what you'll see. So the code there is on the side as I'm highlighting. That's where your code's going to go. And next to it, that's where a preview will be for what you're typing. Now, I know there's a lot going on in this, but don't let it panic you. Genuinely, when you get used to it, just after a few times, you're going to feel right at home here. And it definitely is such an easy piece of software to use. So yeah, don't be intimidated and look forward to getting to know it as you look through your tutorials.
So now let's turn our attention to Swift, the programming language you'll need to learn. Now, this is Apple's own self-made programming language for their products, as Apple naturally would make their own language for themselves. This makes it relatively new compared to other programming language that are maybe more established. But this is a key to why Swift is such a good language. Because it's so new and based on older languages, it means that they've been able to take the very good solid concepts from other languages, brought them together, and made a brilliant, user-friendly, easy-to-read code that you can use to effectively make anything that you need to make. This also does make it a brilliant first language for you to learn, especially if you're new to coding. But this is something that I didn't realize when I first started to get into programming and coding. We have to split coding languages into two sections of learning. So the first step is going to be learning the language itself, so how to read and write it. The second step is then to how to apply that language to make whatever you want to make. How do you use that language and write it to effectively reach aspects of the hardware on your phone or on your Mac? You want to get a location, for example. Well, you need to know how to speak the language, then apply it to that aspect. Could maybe try and illustrate it this way. If you're learning a new language, whatever it may be, okay, first of all, you learn how to speak it. Okay, you learn how to speak, read, and write it. Then eventually, if you wanted to do something in that language, for example, write a song or write a poem or something, not all of that language is applicable to that specific task you want to do. You have to learn how to effectively use the language that you can speak to make a very good song or poem that works. And likewise, the same with programming languages. You have to learn how to speak it, and then you have to learn how to apply it. So, where can we go to learn this fundamental aspect of speaking the language Swift? Well, there are a few resources open to you. One of them itself is actually swift.org, and swift.org is the website of the language itself. It has all the documentation there on it, and interestingly, it has a great introduction to the language to explain what it is. Some of it may go over your head, some of it can be a bit deep, but reading through it is really a good idea. It will introduce you to the basic concepts of what makes the language work and also how you're supposed to read and write it. Apple also has books available. For example, on iBooks, they have the Swift programming language, Swift 5.7 at the time I'm writing it, but it will be updated every time Swift gets updated. So this book, again, is Apple's documentation to teach you through the Swift language. Again, some of it can be a little bit overwhelming, possibly, but as you get through it, ease yourself through, it will teach you the beginnings of the language. Alternatively, obviously, tons of free content is available to you. Just go onto YouTube, search Swift Basics or Beginner Swift, and there will be tons of videos teaching you the basics of how the language works and giving you practical applications of how to use it. So check that out. There's loads of good content creators giving you help and tutorials in that way. And finally, obviously, there are paid courses. So sites like Udemy, often if you go on there looking for Swift iOS development courses, the beginner ones will often teach you to start with the language of Swift. So that's the language summed up. We know we've got that down. When you've done that, then it's time to move on to applying it and learning how to make apps and software. So how do we do that? What resources are available to us? Well, again, there are quite a few. I'm going to point you through to a couple that I know of and found useful. But again, like with anything, search around. There are many more that you can use. I don't want to go on too many tangents to confuse things, but I just want to clear up a little point that maybe you might find confusing as you look around. These courses and learning resources that you see are going to tackle Swift from two different perspectives, and that is Swift with UI Kit and Swift with Swift UI. Now, these are two different ways of applying the Swift language to make an app. I won't go deep into it or try and break it up anymore. I want to keep it as simplistic as possible. But basically, the language is the same. It's just different ways to apply that language to create what you want. You can create the same app exactly with either UIKit or Swift UI. They're called frameworks, and the idea of it is that UIKit is an older, it's been around longer. Okay, it's more established. It's used in a lot of apps because they've been using UIKit from the very beginning. Okay, Swift UI is a newer way of writing the Swift code. You can kind of apply them together and use them together in the same app, but Swift UI is gradually taking over. It's a newer way of making these apps, and it's a fresher approach, and it creates good results, especially when it comes to the actual look and feel of an app. But like I said again, both of them, they both work to create exactly the same app. The one thing I want to stress with you though is don't try and learn both at the same time. You're going to confuse yourself. Just however you do it, pick one and learn that one. When you're comfortable with it, then move on to the other, whichever one that may be. But yeah, try and take them separately. Because of the way that they code slightly differently, you're going to confuse yourself if you try and tackle it at the same time. So, okay, right, on to our resources. Now, again, let's go back to our free content because YouTube is a great place for tutorials of people teaching you how to be able to build apps and use the Swift programming language. Now, this is a great resource, so search around, find someone that you're happy with the way they explain and do things, and follow along. They will help you. Just remember not to get stuck into the tutorial trap. I've got a video on that actually, which I will link down below to keep you aware of that. But please, yeah, try and follow along with how they show you. Take it in, absorb it, take your time, and practically try and recreate it as you go along. Let it really sink in. But all of these people's tutorials are great. Again, there are other courses out there that you can take. These are paid ones. If you feel that motivates you to stick with it, sites like Udemy and others that are able to teach you courses that show you how to make different apps. And through that process, they want to help you see how you can use those concepts to make your own apps, whatever they may be. So there are so many other resources, but I want to share this one in particular with you because it's very well known in the iOS and Apple community of developers, which is Hacking with Swift. Give that a Google. You're going to go to a site where a guy called Paul, he teaches you through a course, whether that is Swift UI or UIKit, showing you how to be able to build apps using Swift. He also actually includes a beginner series, which is exclusively to show you how to use the language, to learn the language from the basics like we were talking about before. Now, obviously, I'm not going to close this site as being the only one. There are tons out there, and there's many others that I've found useful personally. But just to keep this short and concise, I'll highlight this one as it's a great known one. So have a look through that. He offers exercises and that to better help, again, these tutorials sink in, not just to sit there and let it go over our heads, but to really try and take it in and take your time with it. So give that a look. Again, very useful resource. So that's it. That's the resources that I would recommend. There are a lot of resources out there. There's many more that I've used and that many others use. But this will really set up the basics. I just want to give a little framework, a little line that you could follow from no coding to coding. And as you go along the way, you're going to find many other resources that you personally find useful and that you can apply to help you develop on your way and to reach your goal of what you want to achieve. One last little resource that I would really encourage you to look at, which is the developer.apple website. Now, on there, Apple keeps up to date with all of the latest news about development for their products. Give it a little look, have a little browse around and see if there's anything on there that excites you. They've got a few learning things on there as well that would be able to help you achieve more too, and little tutorials and code snippets that you might find helpful, if not now, but later on as you develop through this path. So really do wish you the best. Hope that it all goes well. Let us know how you get on down below and if you found this useful, or if you have other resources that you've found useful, please again, drop them in the comments below so that others may be able to see it and they could find it useful, or I'll explore it and have a little mention of it in the future. So more coming soon. Look forward to seeing you again, and take care.